Hello, this is Nicholas Mastrangelo,
I'm Reese Robinson.
and we are interns with the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival. We're asking people about activism versus terrorism, as our upcoming film is about Angela Davis, a controversial historic figure.
What does it mean to be an activist?
To be an activist is to be somebody who believes in something.
Someone who cares about particular issues to the point where they're willing to, obviously, act on them and participate in improving the situation.
Activist is someone who wants to get involved and try to work hard for the cause that they believe in.
An activist is someone who is passionate about some social issue and puts that, not only thinks about it, but responds to it in very practical ways.
Somebody who gets out in the public, expresses their views for positive reasons.
Someone who's passionate about a cause that they feel strongly about and want to change whatever they feel is wrong.
Without causing trouble.
If there's violence, I would call them a terrorist.
I think terrorism is just plain terrorism. Activism is, it's free country. It's free speech. That's activism to me.
I think terrorism is activism at its worst.
Uses terror for social change.
People go about activism without the intention of hurting others. Whereas terrorism, it's no holds barred. They don't care who they impact to get their point across.
Terrorism is what happened at the finish line at the Boston Marathon. It's what happened at 9/11. It's what happens, going through an airport now. There's constant threat of bad people doing bad things.
Angela Davis, that was when I was my daughter's age. Back in the... Do I look that old? That I would remember Angela Davis?
Angela Davis.
Well, that was a long time ago, and I'm not...
Actually, since I'm my age, I forget all the details. She was with the Black Panther movement, as I remember.
Activist.
Would you call Hinckley activist, a terrorist, or a deranged attempted murderer?
I'm going to go out on a limb. They're right at that border between the two. Although I can't remember all the details of Black activists.
I believe that a lot of the effort that she put into her cause didn't result in substantial number of violent acts and loss of life. And
Depends on your definition. I guess you could say he was all three.
Philosophy professor Angela Davis admitted that she is a member of the Communist Party.
Hoover put her on the top 10. Everybody had a file on her.
Her first lecture drew 2,000 students.
Angela's education is now being put into practice.
Angela Davis purchased 4 guns.
There is a conspiracy in the land. It's a conspiracy to wipe out the black community as a whole.
Well, I think she's trying to overthrow our system of government, and she admits that. The actions of the FBI in apprehending Angela Davis, a rather remarkable story.
A U.S. District Court judge set bail at $100,000.
She knows that the movement to free all political prisoners is growing every day.
This entire incident was a deliberate provocation.
They wanted to break me. They wanted me to respond.
There was enormous feeling for Angela everywhere in the world.
We know that she is innocent.
We want to tell that Pharaoh in Washington to let Angela Davis go free.
What they're doing to her is an exaggerated form of what happens every day to black people in this country.
What does it mean to be a criminal in this society?
They are not going to kill her. They're not going to imprison her. We're going to free her. We're going to win her freedom.
And we'll go to almost any length that's usually, go to any length to portray to the world that this is what they believe in.
And is there a fine line between activism and terrorism?
I don't think so.
Angela Davis?
No.
So what does terrorism mean to you?
Terrorism is something that somebody does that affects people for no apparent reason to make a statement, and it's just, I don't think it's right.
But that could also be what you said of activism, like making a statement.
It is the same thing, but one's using violence and one's not.
But an activist could use violence, right?
Right. Well, yeah, you see it on TV all the time. Activists. They just had something with what was it? Oh, the green people or whatever with their windmills and all that stuff. They were walking. They were getting all arrested. But I don't know why. I didn't see the whole story, but yeah.
And what's your name and where are you from?
My name's Robert Hetherington, and I'm from Beverly, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
To be an activist?
Tries to address it, to make change.
Yeah, practical, but can an activist be violent? There could be violence too, right? Would you still classify them as an activist?
I would call it
Like consistentness in your...
Could be any one of a number of things. I mean, from pacifist, or, not pacifist activity, but, canvassing streets or writing stories that get published on particular topics or anything more extreme, I suppose.
And how would you define a terrorist?
A very extreme activist.
That's good. So do you think there's a fine line between activism and terrorism, or how fine of a line?
No, I don't think it's a fine line. I think it's a very obvious. There's a wide expanse between the two, in terms of intention, in terms of obviously action that you decide to take. I think intention is probably the big one.
Do you know of Angela Davis?
I do not.
And what's your name and where are you from?
My name's Christopher Scott. I'm from Somerville, Massachusetts.
activist.
Would you classify her as an activist or a terrorist?
And they were probably, I'm going to guess, okay?
Thanks. What's your name and where are you from?
Michael Pearson, I'm from Barrington, Rhode Island.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, am I going to appear on Martha's Vineyard TV?
No. What's your definition of an activist?
You'd hopefully it'd be peaceful, but some of them aren't. So.
Do you think if they get too violent, it's not activism anymore? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I think it can veer off into the absurd or the dangerous or jihadist or whatever.
Between activism and terrorism?
No, I think if you've decided to go out and get pressure cookers, or if you're thinking about blowing up a plane, I don't think there's a fine line. I think you've crossed the line.
But it is technically activism what they're doing, right? Terrorists.
No, it's murder. It's killing innocent people. It's marching and holding a sign and chanting is one thing, but when you decide you're going to take the law into your own hands, that's totally different.
Mm-hmm. And do you know about Angela Davis?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Do you think she was more of an activist or a terrorist? Yeah. If you recall.
To be a specialist on Angela Davis right now, I don't think I've. I mean, would you?
Yeah.
And what's your name and where are you from?
Kevin McGrath from Hingham, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh dear.
What means?
Via communication, via how else would you do it? Any type of media, I guess. Any sort of media, eliciting other help from other sources.
Would violence still fall into the category of activism?
It could, depending on the cause, depending on what violence could fall into that. Yes, depending on what the cause was, what it was that you believed in. Hopefully not, but often, unfortunately, yes.
And how do you think? How do you define terrorism? Do you think it's similar to activism? Is there a fine line?
I think when someone is not able to get people supporting the cause that they believe in, and it becomes almost an obsession or becomes something almost borderline evil. I think terrorism is evil. So I think it's at its very worst.
And do you know of Angela Davis?
I do.
If you recall, would you say she's more of an activist or a
Why is that? Because
What's your name and where are you from?
my name is Lisa. I live in the Vineyard in the summertime. Now, what is this for?
This is for the Martha.
If activism becomes violent, is it not activism?
I don't think, no. I think activism should be positive, should be promoting positivity, not negativity.
And how would you define terrorism?
Oh, wow.
Terrorism, do you think just like a souped up version of activism, perhaps? Or?
No, I think that activism is not the.
And what is your name and where are you from?
My name is Joan Shea, and I'm from West Bridgewater, Mass.
I think they've moved on to moving on to a different description of them.
So a terrorist would be like, what